Can you hear me, Mother?
Yeah.
Right. Right, I'm going to give you a view of the Hetton Colliery Railway and the build-up in the area. So this, let's hope we enjoy it. Okay? Sorry, I've got to use this thing. Right. Hetton, before the collieries and the railway, was an agricultural community like a lot of Durham. In the early 1800s, there was only about 230 people lived in the area, and the principal owners of Hetton were the Lyon family, the Honourable Thomas Lyon. He was the youngest son of the Countess of Strathmore, which, as you know, became the Bowes-Lyon family. The population, by the time the collieries had arrived, and the population rose to nearly 6,000 by 1831. Arthur Mowbray established the Hetton Coal Company in the autumn of 1820. The geologists of the time didn't believe that the coal underneath the limestone in East Durham would be of any good quality. But certain people, Smith and people like that, thought that it would be good quality. So Arthur set up the company, and they started sinking on the 6th of December 1820, and the first coals were drawn from the Blossom shaft on the 5th of September 1822, and the second shaft, the minor, was started on the 23rd of December, and coals were drawn on the 26th of January 1823. This was a colliery first. It was the first one through the limestone of the east of Durham, and the doubters were put to shame because their coal was of superior quality, which was started the opening up of the whole of the East Durham coal field. Okay. Now to get the coal for sale to the stayers, they needed to build a railway. They couldn't agree with the owners of other collieries in the sort of just west of Hetton area and the Londonderrys and the Lambtons. So they decided to build their own railway from Hetton right through to Sunderland, so that they export coal directly onto colliers down for the London market. They asked George Stevenson, who at the time was a budding railway engineer, to design the railway, and George, I lost my sticker. Saturday morning. Right. Happened the same with model railways as well. Never work on a Saturday morning. Right. So they decided to build a railway and asked George to survey it and design the railway for them. It was a complicated system because they had to traverse Warden Law, which was one of the highest hills in the area, 634 feet above sea level. So from Hetton Colliery, the line went on the level to the Copt Hill banked foot, and then there was engine work incline up to Copt Hill, and then from Copt Hill up to Warden Law, and then 4 self-acting inclines down to Northmoor, and then railway worked down to the stairs at Sunderland. As you can see the Sunderland Bridge there. George had already been poached by the Stockton and Darlton Railway, so his brother Robert superintended the building of the railway. Okay. Once they got to the stairs, they needed to store the coal because if it's left out in the open, it degenerates and it loses its quality. So they built huge storage areas ready to load onto the colliers when the colliers were able to get up the river until be loaded and taken down to the East Anglia and the London. Okay. This is the famous opening of the Hetton Railway. I'll read it out to you if you don't mind. The Hetton Coal Company effected the first shipment of coals at their newly erected stairs on the banks of the River Wear at Sunderland. The wagon way, which extends over a space of 8 miles from the colliery to the Wear, and in its course crosses Warden Law, one of the highest hills in this part of the country, was crowded with excited spectators who had gathered to witness the first operations of the powerful and ingenious machinery for conveying coals, the coal wagons. 5 of Mr. George Stevenson's patent travelling locomotives, 2 60 horsepower fixed reciprocating engines, and 5 self-acting inclines under the direction of Mr. George and Robert Stevenson, the company's resident engineers, simultaneously performing their various complicated offices with the precision and exactness of the most simple machinery, exhibited a spectacle at once interesting and encouraging to commerce. After the line had been formally opened, the business of the day completed, the owners of Hetton Colliery and about 50 of their friends dined at Miss Jousey's Bridge Inn, James's Poor Bears. Don't believe everything you read in newspapers. Even those days they got it wrong. In 1822, there was only 3 locomotives being supplied by George Stevenson. The other 2 were supplied in 1823. Okay. Typical Stevenson locomotive built for the Hetton Colliery Railway. I would think they were probably made at Killingworth and possibly transported in kit form down to Hetton, where they would have been erected at Hetton. Okay. Following the success of the Hetton Colliery Railway, the Hetton Coal Company, the sinking of the Hetton Lions, the company decided to sink 2 new collieries. One was Elemore Colliery, just to the southwest of Hetton, and the sinking started on the 25th of March 1825, and coal was reached in February 1827 without much difficulty. The colliery was linked to the Hetton Railway by a self-acting incline. In about 1905, the locomotives took over to take the wagons up and down. Okay. They also started sinking Appleton Colliery in May of 1825, but owing to the difficulties sinking through the limestone and the quicksands, they had quite a few failures and problems, and they didn't actually produce coal until 1833. Again, the incline was worked, self-acting incline, eventually taken over by steam locomotives in 1895. Just to give an idea of the contours, from Hetton Colliery, virtually on the flat, 1 in 16 up to the Bayer engine, up to the flat engine, and then about 91, 191, eventually up to Wardenlaw, the 4 self-acting inclines down to Northmoor, and then down on the level to the stairs. Within a few months of the opening of the railway, they realised that the design of the railway wasn't very good. The amount of coals that were going down the line, the railway couldn't cope. So they spent a lot of time organising what they were going to do. So they built 4 new stationary engines, 1 at the flat engine, 1 at Northmoor incline engine, 1 at Winters Lane, and 1 down to the stairs. That was about 1827, because obviously a stationary engine can transport coals much faster than a locomotive of the day, which was only doing about 4 miles an hour, whereby the stationary engines could haul at 10 miles an hour. So that means that they got the coal down the railway quicker, and they could cope with the amount of coal needed to be transported down. Also, the rail was fish-bellied rail. For some reason, don't know why they did that, but it was very brittle fish-bellied rail. It broke. The weight of the locomotives tend to crack it. Eventually, at Hetton, they started their own foundry to make fish-bellied rail to replace all the broken rail. It was eventually replaced with wrought iron. Okay. So there's the railway. Hetton Lions Colliery along to Coptail Bank Foot, and then up to Copt Hill. There's the flat engine which was installed in 1827, up to Wardenlaw, down the inclines, and then the 4th incline engine, another stationary engine, to draw the wagons along to the Winters Lane engine, and then down to the stairs. Okay. So now we have the 3 collieries in operation. We've got the Hetton Lions Main, Elemore Colliery, and Appleton Colliery. This is from a tent-ale book of 1834. It shows the elephant, which is at Beamish. Now, the replicas at Beamish. It virtually proves that the elephant, an elephant variation, actually ran at Hetton. Because they wouldn't have put somebody else's engine on that tent-ale boat, would they, really? Okay. The influx of miners was as I say, was great. The population really blossomed, and They needed new housing for the miners, they needed amenities and what have you. And Hetton and Hetton Lines were the main villages around Hetton Colliery. This is the centre of Hetton as we know it today. Okay. Hetton Downs for Eppleton Colliery was settled by the miners working at Eppleton Colliery. Okay. And of course, Easington Lane was for Elemore Colliery. This is the main street in Easington Lane, which has changed a bit. Okay. So we'll do it too. We'll start at Elemore and work our way down to Sunderland. As I said, Elemore was the southernmost part of the railway, and it was originally sunk on land belonging to the Baker family of Elemore Hall. He'd taken out shares in the company for a short while, and his money did really help, I think, towards the Hetton Coal Company. Okay. From Elemore Colliery, the branch down to Hetton, it crossed the main Easington to Horton Spring to Easington Village Road, and it's one of the few gated crossings on the whole of the railway. The railway closed in 1959, but a lot of people still call the bus stop the White Gates. Okay. This is the Hetton Lines complex about 1919. They had coke ovens, brickworks, granaries, engineering works where they repaired, built locomotives, as we'll see later. So it was a huge complex. There was also a connection down onto the Durham and Sunderland Railway, which became BR. This was the wide gates we've just seen. This has come from Elemore Colliery to join the Hetton system. Okay. This is one of the original erecting shops at the old engine works at Hetton. From the 1820s, you can see the track coming in from the outside. This building stood empty for quite a number of years, and it was later taken over by it obviously belonged to Bowes Lyons by the Joyceys, where originally it was Bowes Lyon land. It was taken over and became the gymnasium of the Hetton Lions Boys Club. It was opened by the Queen Mother, again the Bowes Lyon influence, in 1963. That was the erecting shop we've just seen, that end there. Okay. This is the Hetton locomotive that's in the National Collection. It was thought to be an original of 1822, but it was actually built in 1849. You'll hear much more about that from Michael Bailey. It was actually built at the Hetton workshops. They built a lot of other locomotives in that time. This is one of the weird ones. It had a marine vertical boiler in the chains, which health and safety wouldn't really have helped nowadays. This is the old engine shed with the children wagons above. So again, built at Hetton Lines workshops. Okay. Some of the workmen on the railway, you've got your engine drivers, firemen, fitters, and of course cleaners. Okay. Now the railway, the transport, the wagons and that needed repairs, the railway needed repairs, and these are some of the workmen in the wagon repair shops. Big employer in those days. Okay. As I said earlier on, they had huge coke ovens from about the 1900s right through the 1920s. And as well as the coke ovens that had the brick making and what have you. This is another photograph of the Hetton locomotive, and the little 3 scribbled on there proves that was Hetton's number 3 engine. We didn't know that till we saw that photograph, because all collieries numbered their locomotives, and that was Hetton number 3. Okay. The original Hetton Lines, Blossom and Minor shafts. This photograph taken in 1905, but if you look at the original engraving we showed earlier, it hadn't changed much in 80 years. And when they knocked it all down in 1959, it hadn't even changed much of then. James Joyce took over the Hetton Coal Company, as I said, in 1911, and he did a lot of alterations to the whole area. He upgraded the collieries, the railway, and what have you. And he also built engineering workshops. This was the new workshop built in the 1920s, where they could virtually build engines, repair engines, and do big engineering repairs. This is a view inside. You've got the foreman's office on the top looking down, seeing everybody's working. But it closed about 1935 when all of the big engineering work went down to Lambton Engine Works. Okay. They also built a new engine shed, and this engine shed further down the line towards Hetton, it served all the locomotives were stored here that served the three collieries, Appleton, Elemore and Hetton Lines collieries, and this was their main engine shed, built in about the 1920s. Okay. Ready for a busy day? That was my childhood interest in industrial railways. Going down here and say, "Can I have a ride, mister?" Jump on, son, pull that lever. And that was in the early 50s when I was fairly young. That was in the early 50s, and they would say, "Come up, son, get on, have a ride." And that got my interest in industrial railways X number of years ago. Okay. We'll head towards Hetton now. We've left Hetton Lines. We're heading towards the centre of Hetton. Okay. Now the railway literally cut Hetton in half. There was no gates, nothing. You rolled out of the pub, rolled across the line to the Caroline. The chapels were there, the shops were there on the main line. People used this as a thoroughfare because it was on the flat. Okay. And the roads themselves were controlled by the flagman. The mountain in the background is Appleton Colliery waste heap. Jack Evans was, for a lot of years, he was the crossing keeper, and with his flag and what have you. Okay. This is Jack stopping the traffic, middle of Hetton, as we've just seen earlier on. This is up to the Caroline, up Caroline Street towards Hetton Downs. He stuck his flag out, stopped the traffic, and then when the locomotive had gone past, he would let the traffic go past. During the night, they had signals, lit signals during the night. Okay. So we're leaving Caroline Street and we're heading down towards Hetton Dean, towards Copthill Bank Foot. This here was the old stairs where they dropped the coal for the miners' use. They built some new ones at the bottom of Ferry and Edward Street, and you can just see a locomotive on the top delivering wagons ready for the coal stairs. This trench, the Hetton Gas Company, the Hetton Lines Gas Company, amalgamated with the Horton Gas Company, and they laid a pipe from Horton Spring all the way up to Hetton Lines along the railway. Obviously the easiest, they weren't digging up roads, you just dug the side of the railway up. So from Horton Spring all the way up to Hetton, they put this gas pipe between the two businesses. Okay. Just a little bit further down, this is the branch up to Appleton Colliery. You can see the mountain in the background again. Again, as I said earlier, it was rope-hauled until about 1895, and then the locomotives started working it from there. Okay. Once the wagons were brought down by the locomotives to Hetton Dean, to Copthill Bank Foot, they were assembled here, and then they were assembled in trains of 6 wagons, and then pulled up to Copthill. Okay. In the early days, the children wagons, you had wagon riders. This is father and son, the Atkinson family. They would ride the wagon up the incline. If there's any breakages or anything, they would jump onto the brakes, which is fairly dangerous operation, jump onto the brakes and stop the wagons. Once they got to the top, they would jump off again, brake the wagons, and then take the rope off. Okay. So we've just seen them, the two Atkinsons at the bottom here, and this is coming up towards Copthill. This is the crossing from Horton Spring to Seaham Harbour. Okay. Now this building here, just in the right, we'll see it next. The heaps in the background was the Meadows Colliery of Horton Colliery, West Drayton in the background there. Okay. The Copthill was the local hostelry for the people working on the railway. It's still there today, and it's just been reopened, refurbished, and it's going to be reopened. So, very old public house on the crossings as we saw earlier. It served the local workers on the railway. Right. Once we got the top of Copt Hill Bank top, the wagons have just coming up, they've come over the kip and they've stopped here, and these are ready to drop down. How it worked is the loaded wagons were drawn up, the rope was attached to it was a loop, and it was attached to the empty wagons, and as they were drawn up, the empty wagons were let down the incline. These are the typical cottages that the people working on the railway lived in. These two was the Gare family. I reckon the Gares actually came with the railway. They were very involved with the Hetton Coal Company. Arthur Gare became the chief engineer for the Ryop collieries until his retirement, and his uncle was the engineer at Elemore colliery. Whereas I say the Gares were there from the outset, I would have said. Okay. This is the Bayer engine, the Copt Hill Bayer, but it was known as the Bayer engine. You can see Wardenlaw at the top, and this is where the wagons are being drawn up by the winder, by the Bayer engine winder. Okay. Inside showing the drums and the cables, the original winder, the 60 horsepower one, was replaced in 1876 by this one, which was built by the Grange Ironworks at Carville. The Grange Ironworks was started by the Colston family, one of the sinkers in Durham, and they built equipment for collieries for all over the world, India, you name it, they built them. And they built this in 1876. So that replaced the flat engine further up the line, and it drew the cables from here as well as the Copt Hill incline. Okay. This is what was the flat engine. There's Copt Hill. This is the flat engine, which was midway between Wardenlaw and Copt Hill. When it was replaced in 1876, they kept the engine here, and that drew water to supply Copt Hill Bayer engine and the Wardenlaw engine. So that was water to feed in the reservoir. They used it to feed the reservoirs for the two winding engines. Okay. Getting up the top, there's the kip. The wagons are drawn up over the top, and these are ready to go down. As I say, 634 feet above sea level, which was a canny climb. Okay. Just looking back down, flat engine, Bayer engine. As we saw earlier, this is the Meadows colliery pit heap. How it worked, if for the people who don't know how it works, you've got two ropes. This is the winder here. One rope's letting the wagons go down, and one's bringing them up. This is the passing loop. So up here, that kept the two ropes apart by the three tracks. That was the passing loop. And then once they got the bottom, that bit there was only ever one rope. So that's how they worked it. That kept the ropes apart at the winder side, passing loop, and then a single rope down to the next junction. Okay. Once we get to the top, complicated. You've got the wagons being drawn up here, being drawn up from Copt Hill, and these are ready to go down the four inclines, down to Northmoor and then eventually Sunderland. While we're on the top here, for the ladies, how do you get if you lived in all the remote cottages around the area, how did you get your hair cut? What they did, Ernie Johnson was the fireman here, and he was the unofficial hairdresser for the railway. So to get up the inclines, you jumped on the wagon, came up the top, and then jumped off, got your hair cut, and went back down. True, very true. How did you do it with the bands? You strapped them onto the buffer beam, 2.5 to 3 year old, strapped them onto the buffer beam, said the kids are coming up, take them off, cut the hair, fasten them on, send them back down. True story, true story. Health and safety. Okay. This was Alf Swinhoe. He was one of the winder men, one of the last winder men at Wardenlaw. As you can see, 1836, I think, 1836 this winder was built. Alf Swinhoe. There is a film of him done by the Mining Review of him finishing off with the controls of the Wardenlaw engine. Okay. Now, to keep the railway open, which virtually ran 24 hours a day, you had to, in all weathers, so the plate layers were involved in keeping the railway open. In 1947, I think in 41, they actually got miners from the collieries to come and help to clear the railway. It was that bad. So you had to keep that running at all times. So the plate layers and the winder men and the wagon men, they did a marvellous job keeping that open. Okay. Burden Road crossing, if you know the area, Stony Gate along to Burden Village, where Jaguar are now, this was the Burden Road crossing. Again, ungated, you had your flagman, and there you can see the rope on the wagons. The loaded coal going down towards Northmoor. Okay. A view of the incline, the wagons have been drawn up and they're ready to be dropped down, the ropes have been attached, ready to go down number 3 incline. The inclines were from Wardenlaw 1, 2, 3 down to the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4 down to the bottom. That's how they worked it. Okay. Once they got down to the end of the 4th incline, the wagons were reassembled into train of 16, what have you, and then taken by locomotive down to the stairs. Okay. In 1920, James Joycey bought the Silksworth colliery from Lord Londonderry. And about 1939, they put a connection from the Silksworth colliery down the Hetton Railway, down onto the Hetton Railway at Northmoor, so that basically Silksworth coal, some of Silksworth coal could also be transported down onto the Sunderland stairs. Because the Silksworth and Rybe collieries, they actually ran down to the coast, down to the main BR line at Rybe. But they say this connection was put in so that some of Silksworth coal could be transported onto the stairs at Hetton, at Lambton Hetton stairs. Okay. This is the original crossing at Burden, at the Barns at Sunderland, just below the Barns Hotel. Crossing on the level, obviously as the years drew on, the Durham-Sunderland Road became a very, very busy road, which it still is today. So to get round that, okay, they sunk a tunnel underneath it. There's the Durham Road we've just seen. They sunk a tunnel underneath the Durham Road about 1912, 13, I think. This is the Barnes Hotel on the left-hand side, underneath. So that eased the traffic situation, removed the railway crossing. Okay. From the Barns, we went along through Chester Road, Edenvale Road, and then along to the stairs. This was actually an accident which happened in 1954. The locomotive had inadvertently been turned onto the siding, and both the driver and the fireman jumped off, and they eventually applied the brakes, and he eventually stopped in the horn, literally before it went onto the road, or there would have been a hell of a lot of free coal. So they stopped it, and this was 1954. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but it could have been a very serious accident. This is Thompson's coal sale, which we'll see later. Coal land sale depot, we'll see later. Okay. The locomotive had literally come off there and was just balanced on the hoardings here. This is the line continuing down to Sunderland. Chester Road, as you can see, it was busy then. This is a much later photograph when I'll tell you, but basically the railway from Hetton to Silksworth, Northmoor were closed, and this part remained open to supply Silksworth coal down to Sunderland. Okay. This is the Hetton land sale that we've just seen earlier on. There was quite a few in Sunderland for the simple reason the amount of coal required for the housing in Sunderland, which was becoming a big place by then. And this was one of the land sale depots at Sunderland. Horse and carts. You can't see, but that says Hetton Coal Company on that cart. Okay. Now, as well as land sale and export, the Hetton Coal Company supplied coal to a lot of the industries. This is the Bishop Weymouth Iron Works. This is the Hartley's Glass Works, and they also supply coal to Sunderland Glass Works as well, which is probably at Ayers Quay. So they supplied a lot of coal to a lot of industries in Hetton, in Sunderland, and on the railway, really. Okay. They also supplied Sunderland Power Station. This is looking back along towards the Bishop Weymouth Ironworks and Hartway. And the power station had their own locomotive, and they were supplied with coal from the Hetton Coal Company as well. This is Hilton Road, and the loco is going across to collect coal for the power station. Okay. The Hetton stairs were originally on 2 levels. This leads to the high level stairs, which you'll see later, and this dropped down to the lower level stairs on the way. This locomotive is bringing empties up from the lower level stairs and eventually the Lambton stairs. If you notice this little bit in the middle here, okay, Rick? This was the Colin stage. So say if the locomotive is going down onto the stairs for Colin, this was break time. They're reading that paper, seeing what's racing today, and the water and the loading coal. This was just beside the high level stairs, which is here. The view in the background, that's the Weymouth colliery on the other side of the river. Okay. Now to get down to low level stairs, it was a zigzag. We've just been standing here getting fuel. It dropped down, zigzag, down, and then down again onto the lower level stairs. Okay. This was the high level stairs, which when we saw in the earlier engraving, with the huge coal storage building, these were rebuilt, and this is the high level stairs, and these were the fastest coal loading stairs in the northeast. They could fill a ship within a few hours. You can see the huge chute and what have you. Okay. From the high level stairs looking down to the lower level stairs, these are probably colliers waiting to come down to get coal. You can see Ayres Quay Bottle Works and the shipbuilding further around the river. So this is looking from the high level stairs down onto the low level stairs and looking up the river. Okay, Rick. Some of the workmen on the stairs, a fine bunch of men, all with the ubiquitous tash, as they wore them days, and the flat cap, of course. Okay. This is the other. In 1911, as we said, James Joyce had taken over the Hetton Coal Company and amalgamated with the Lambton which he'd taken over in 1896, and it became the Lambton Hetton Coal Company. The zigzag. This was the zigzag down from the from the stairs down to the Hetton stairs, and this was just literally a tunnel cut into the hillside to allow the reverse back down. In 1911, he'd taken over and he amalgamated the Lambton and the Hetton stairs, and they built a tunnel from the Hetton stairs through to the Lambton stairs. So most of the coal was now transported from the Lambton stairs. They still use the high level stairs, but most of the coal was now transported from the Lambton stairs. Okay. This is the other side. This is the Lambton Colliery Railway tunnel. Going towards Penshaw and what have you, and this is the other side of the hillside where they cut through from the Hetton stairs. Okay. So this was just the south of the river. Power station, the Hetton stairs, the Lambton stairs, and the Riverway Bridge is here. This was Joyce's complex just at Sunderland. It was huge. Monk Weymouth had equal stairs on the other side, so that whole area was industrial. This is what is Galley's Bridge, which is still there today. A walkway across, say, the power station, Hetton stairs, Lambton stairs, loads of ships waiting to be filled and taken. So it was a huge combine, the Lambton Hetton Coal Company. Okay. That's the power station up behind. That's the tunnel between the two stairs and the Lambton stairs. Once they did that, they built an engine shed on the Lambton side, and that held the locomotives that worked the Lambton Railway and also worked the Hetton Railway up to the inclines at North Moor at Silksworth. Okay. The coal in the northeast tend to be bottom doors, so the coal was dropped through the bottom of the wagon down onto the chute. This is obviously a very, very cold morning. It must have been freezing standing up there in the winter. This chap's got a hammer to hit the sides of the wagon to loosen the coal, which had probably frozen with the snow and ice. And this guy's climbed up to see if it's all come out. Okay. There he is. There's the chutes down into the collier, coal into the collier. Okay. Now the trimmers, they were employed to lay out the coal in the ships to balance them out. So they would trim it level in the holds so that the ship wouldn't tip over. Okay. Now the Hetton Coal Company encouraged sport. And one of the things they did, they supplied 2 boats for the trimmers and teamers boat teams. This one's the Woods and that one's the Lindsay Wood. And they would have regattas in the early 1900s. They had regattas on Sunderland Weir like they did at Newcastle and Durham. And this was the trimmers and teamers boat teams. Okay. This is the trimmers with the oars. Seriously. It's like the south coast, southern hemisphere canoeists, but that's what they used. That was the oars. 1, 2, 3, 6. Okay. Now in 1959, Hawthorne Mine opened at South Hetton, and the coal from Elemore Colliery, Eppleton Colliery and Merton Colliery and eventually South Hetton Colliery was taken underground. They built railways underground, in the seams underground, to the Hawthorne Combined Mine. So the Hetton Railway wasn't really needed, the southern part. So it closed. Hetton Lines Colliery had closed in 1950, but obviously the railway had remained open for the coals coming from Eppleton and Elemore. So this virtually made the Hetton Railway, as far as Silksworth, redundant. Okay. So they immediately started taking the railway up from this is North Moor. They worked their way back to Hetton. They've taken the rope out here. So they closed on the 9th of September 59, and the removal began immediately. Back to Hetton Lines. This is the Warden Law at the top. You can see that they're working their way back to Hetton. These rollies were so that the ropes didn't cross. That kept the ropes on that track, and they kept the ropes on that track, so they didn't join together. Okay. So the locomotives, there's the Warden Law engine, taking the track up, wagons ready to take the track up, back to Hetton. Okay. The Warden Law engine had been installed in 1836. It was built by Murray's of Chesley Street, another famous engineering company. It was installed in 1836 and it gave 123 years of service. The army dismantled it and the building, and it was taken for Durham County Council for Frank Atkinson's proposed Museum of the North. It eventually ended up at Beamish, and it stood out in the open for 50 years. We don't think it'll ever be rebuilt. It's not in Beamish's programme. Right. So we're heading back towards Hetton. This is Railway Street we've seen where it was open. The men are working their way back to Hetton. This is Richard Street crossing here. They took the track. A lot of these were ex-engine drivers, plate layers. They were employed to take the railway. It must have been really sad taking the railway to bits. Okay. The last few feet of track, we've come from Hetton, we're coming up, this is the Hetton Lines complex. The last few feet of track were taken up and put onto here. And the locomotive, they took this is the last few feet of track, and this is the branch down onto the Durham and Sunderland Railway. Okay. Number 14, our famous number 14, was the last locomotive on the southern part of the Hetton Railway. It took its last train. The drivers handed over to British Railway drivers. It took its last train from Hetton Lines Junction along through Hetton Station to Moseley, and then the junction at Moseley Colliery, what was Moseley Colliery, and then down to Lambton. So that was the last locomotive on the southern part of the Hetton Railway. Okay. The Lambton Stairs, the Lambton Stairs stayed open until 1967, and this is a view, I think it's, looking at it shortly on closure. This is the engine shed we saw earlier, Lambton Stairs, the two railway bridges at Sunderland, and it finally closed on the 6th of January 1967. Okay, that's it today. Sunderland City reopening the Stevenson Trail, and they're starting here, and they're working their way all the way back to Elemore, and there'll be signposts and what have you. But the change from the original, the photograph you just seen, to where it was landscaped after they'd finished, but it's been done again. So that was what we saw earlier, that huge complex of the Lambton Stairs. Okay. Just as a postscript, the section from Silksworth Colliery down to Landsale Depot at Hilton Road Railway Row stayed open to supply coal to the Landsale Depot, and it actually finished on the 3rd of June 1972. So the Hetton Railway saw 150 years of existence. Okay, thank you.